On a fateful day in August 1990, the world of music was forever changed. The Alpine Valley Music Festival in East Troy, Wisconsin was abuzz with excitement, as legendary performers such as Eric Clapton, Buddy Guy, Robert Cray, and the immensely talented Vaughan brothers Jimmy and Stevie Ray took to the stage. Stevie Ray Vaughan, born in Dallas, Texas on October 3, 1954, was no stranger to the music world. Inspired by his older brother Jimmy's guitar playing, Stevie taught himself to play guitar at a young age. He spent his high school years playing in clubs and recording songs with local bands. Stevie's passion for the blues led him to form several bands before eventually forming Double Trouble in 1978. The band's raw talent and energy caught the attention of major musicians, including Mick Jagger, who invited them to a private party in New York City. This led to an invitation to perform at the Montreal Jazz Festival in Switzerland, where they made history as the first band to play without a record deal. Their performance was seen by David Bowie and Jackson Browne, who invited them to a demo session in Los Angeles. This led to a record deal with CBS Epic Records, and Stevie's fame rose rapidly. He was named Best New Talent and Best Electric Blues Guitarist of 1983 in Guitar Players magazine's Readers' Poll, and his album received a Grammy nomination for Best Rock Instrumental Performance. Stevie's subsequent albums, Couldn't Stand the Weather, Live Alive, and Soul to Soul, all achieved gold status and received multiple Grammy nominations in both the blues and rock categories. However, Stevie's life took a turn when he collapsed during his European tour in 1986 due to drug and alcohol abuse. He eventually checked into rehab and committed to Alcoholics Anonymous' 12 Steps program. Stevie's fifth album, In Step, released in 1989, was a testament to his sobriety and his commitment to his music. On the evening of August 26, 1990, a major blues music festival was planned, featuring Stevie Ray Vaughan and Double Trouble. It was a night that would be remembered for years to come as one of the greatest blues musicians of all time took the stage to perform his craft. Stevie Ray delivered an electrifying performance. His rendition of Sweet Home Chicago that night, a blues standard, was a memorable moment capturing the spirit of the blues while infusing it with Stevie's unique style. After their performance, they talked about playing together again, especially with Eric Clapton for a series of shows at London's Royal Albert Hall as a tribute to Jimi Hendrix. However, their conversation was cut short when Clapton's tour manager, Peter Jackson, said that the weather was getting worse and they had to leave soon. The concert ended late, and in the early hours of August 20th, Bell Jet Ranger helicopters were ready at a golf course near Elkhorn to transport Eric Clapton and his crew members to Chicago. The helicopters belonged to OMNIFLIGHT Helicopters Incorporated and had been chartered by the concert's promoter, Jam Productions. Among the passengers were Stevie Ray, his brother Jimmy Vaughan, and Jimmy's wife Connie. However, shortly before departure, a sudden change of plans disrupted their arrangements. The Vaughan brothers were informed that instead of the 3 reserved seats, only 1 seat was available. The other seats had been taken by Clapton's agent Bobby Brooks, bodyguard Nigel Brown, and assistant tour manager Colin Smith. As a result, Jimmy decided to stay behind with his wife while Stevie took a seat in the only reserved seat. The helicopter Stevie boarded was a Bell 206 B-Jet Ranger tail number N16933. It was manufactured in 1977 and had been in service for several years. Curiously, among the 4 pilots who were operating helicopters that night under OmniFlight, Jeffrey Brown stood out as the sole individual lacking certification to fly a helicopter under instrumental meteorological conditions. Since he wasn't certified, all he could do to fly was to navigate the helicopter based on visual cues through the windows, which required favorable weather conditions. Matter of fact, shortly before the flight took place, Brown had previously undergone an IFR clearance and instrument rating exam which he did not pass. At approximately 1 o'clock a.m. Stevie's helicopter lifted off from the golf course adjacent to the Alpine Valley Music Theatre. This third helicopter with the registration number N16933 departed at a lower altitude compared to the other helicopters. The pilot then made a southeast turn towards an area with elevated terrain. The other helicopter pilots reported that the weather conditions were VFR with some fog. This meant that the visibility was good enough to fly by sight, but there was some fog present. Despite the fog and visibility of only a few hundred feet, the pilot decided to go ahead with the flight. The planned route was to fly along State Highway 120, a route Brown knew. However, shortly after takeoff, the helicopter veered off its intended course. Brown was unaware that the helicopter was heading directly towards a 300-foot high ski hill known as the Man-Made. The hill was part of the Alpine Valley Resort and was located just 3/5 of a mile from the takeoff point. The hill was not lit, and in the dense fog it would have been virtually invisible to the pilot. As a result, Brown could not ascend the helicopter in time, and ultimately it crashed on the side of a ski hill that was 0.6 miles away from the golf course. Despite the weather conditions suggesting that the pilot might have to navigate using instruments, Brown wasn't certified to fly helicopters in such conditions. Also, the Bell 206 series helicopters which Brown was flying weren't certified for instrument flights. A ground witness near the crash site observed varying levels of haze and ground fog along with patches of low clouds. However, according to him, the fog was not so thick that it blocked out the stars. Unfortunately, all 5 occupants of the helicopter had died instantly. According to Eric Clapton's Los Angeles publicist, Ronnie Lipin, several members of Clapton's tour team were among the individuals who tragically passed away in the incident. These included Nigel Brown, a bodyguard, and Colin Smith, an assistant tour manager. Both Brown and Smith were from England. Another member of the touring team, Bobby Brooks, was also a casualty of the incident. Brooks, a 34-year-old agent, was associated with the Creative Artists Agency. In addition to these, Stevie Ray and Jeff Brown, the pilot, were also victims of the tragic event. At around 7:00 a.m., a search helicopter from the Wisconsin Civil Air Patrol with sheriff's deputies on board located the crash site. The debris site was found at an elevation of approximately 100 feet above the golf course and approximately 50 feet below the hill's summit. Detailed investigation revealed no evidence of component failures or malfunctions prior to the crash. Based on the available facts, the National Transportation Safety Board has determined the probable cause of this accident as follows: improper planning decision by the pilot and his failure to attain adequate altitude before flying over rising terrain at night. Factors related to the accident were darkness, fog, haze, rising terrain, and the lack of visual cues that were available to the pilot. According to Captain Polly Robinson, a member of the Wisconsin Civil Air Patrol, the helicopter crash occurred on a 1,000-foot ski hill. The impact took place roughly 100 feet below the summit in an open space situated east of the designated ski trail. This particular hill was located in a forested region approximately 3/4 of a mile to the southeast of the theatre. There is debris spread about 200 feet, she said. The crash apparently occurred shortly after the concert, but an emergency locator transmitter signal wasn't received until about 4 hours later. The wreckage was found at 06:15 a.m. CDT. Robinson said legal actions were initiated on behalf of all 4 passengers against multiple parties, including the helicopter operating company, OMNIFLIGHT Helicopters, the aircraft manufacturer Bell Helicopter, and the engine manufacturer Allison Gas Turbine. On September 11, 1992, the National Transportation Safety Board determined that the crash was caused by the pilot's decision to proceed with the flight under visual flight rules in adverse weather conditions. The foggy weather in the darkness of night would have made it impossible for the pilot to see and avoid the hill. It finally concluded that the pilot failed to gain sufficient altitude to avoid rising terrain. Thomas Demetrio, a lawyer from Chicago who represents Stevie's estate, expressed no surprise regarding the findings of the National Transportation Safety Board. While filing for a lawsuit in July 1992 on behalf of the estate, Demetrio argued that the helicopter charter company should have been aware that the weather conditions were not suitable for safe flying. John Nielsen, the general manager of OmniFlight, refrained from providing any comment on the NTSB report as he had not yet reviewed it, and due to the ongoing lawsuit, upon further investigations, it was found out that Jeffrey Brown, the pilot, was flying a helicopter at nighttime for the first time from the Elkhorn Valley. As he went above the lights in the parking lot, he suddenly couldn't see outside the cockpit, which took him by surprise. If Brown had been certified to use instruments like the other OmniFlight pilots, he could have relied on the cockpit's instruments like the artificial horizon and lid indicators to keep ascending. He knew he only had to stay on course for a few seconds until he could see the city lights and find his way to Chicago. But without realizing it, he unknowingly tilted the helicopter to the right by pressing the controls slightly while looking into the dark sky above the parking lot lights. Within seconds, instead of flying over the hills, he crashed into one. In regards to the legal action, the plaintiffs directed their attention towards OmniFlight, the company responsible for assigning Jeff Brown to the mission. As time passed, all the lawsuits reached settlements with OmniFlight shouldering the financial burden, the specific amounts remaining undisclosed, improper planning, and the decision taken by the pilot and his failure to attain adequate altitude before flying over rising terrain at night contributed to the incident. Other actors related to the accident were darkness, fog, haze, rising terrain, and the lack of visual cues that were available to the pilot. Soon after the incident, both Eric Clapton and Jimmy Vaughan were summoned to the morgue for identifying the bodies. The autopsy report stated that Stevie Ray Vaughan had multiple severe injuries, like a torn aorta, skull fractures, and damage to the spleen and liver, as well as a broken thigh, bone, and ribs. All these injuries were fatal. An inquiry confirmed that neither drugs nor alcohol were involved in the incident, and all victims were wearing their seatbelts. There were no reported mechanical issues with the helicopter. The pilot, Jeff Brown, was fully qualified for flying the Bell 206B helicopter, even in night conditions. The National Transportation Safety Board attributed the accident to controlled flight into terrain, essentially stating that Brown couldn't see the hill due to poor visibility. Defeated by the news, a group of about 40 fans gathered at the resort the following Monday, August 28, 1990. These were the fans who had attended Sunday night's concert. Each was in tears as they looked up at the hill where the tragedy had taken place. Despite the rainy weather, a few people decided to make the quarter-mile uphill trek to view the wreck before taking it to a hangar in Janesville the next day for further examination. On August 31st, a solemn procession took place at Laurel Land Memorial Park in Dallas. The musician, who was deeply cherished, was honored by a large crowd of mourners gathered around his gravesite. More than 1,500 people came to Stevie's funeral, and another 3,000 were outside the chapel. His fiancée, Jenna Levidus, his brother Jimmy, and sister-in-law Martha Vaughan were all there. Stevie had influenced so many lives. Famous musicians such as Eric Clapton, Stevie Wonder, Buddy Guy, Dr. John ZZ Top, Bonnie Raitt, Jackson Browne and Nile Rodgers also came to say goodbye to the artist. In 1991, the governor of Texas, Ann Richards, made October 3rd a special day to remember Stevie Ray Vaughan, known as Stevie Ray Vaughan Commemoration Day. To honor his legacy, a memorial concert was held at the Texas Theater. In 1993, Martha Vaughan established the Stevie Ray Vaughan Memorial Scholarship Fund. This fund provides scholarships to students at Wee Griner Middle School in Oak Cliff who aspire to pursue a career in the arts by attending college. During the same year, a memorial statue dedicated to Stevie was unveiled on Auditorium Shores, becoming the first public monument in Austin dedicated to a musician. This meaningful memorial stands near the very location where Stevie performed his final concert in Austin, demonstrating the impact of Stevie's life and music. A Stevie Ray Vaughan Memorial Run for Recovery was organized in Dallas in September 1994. This special event served as a benefit for the Ethel Daniels Foundation, which supports people in their recovery from alcohol and drug addiction, especially those who cannot afford treatment. On August 6, 1996, a special album titled A Tribute to Stevie Ray Vaughan was released. This remarkable album features Eric Clapton covering various compositions by Stevie alongside exceptional performances by influential artists such as B.B. King, Buddy Guy, Dr. John, Bonnie Raitt, Jimmy Vaughan, and Robert Cray. Additionally, in 1999, the Musicians Assistance Program established the prestigious Stevie Ray Vaughan Award. This award aimed to honor Stevie's memory and acknowledge musicians who demonstrate profound dedication to assisting fellow addicts in their journey of recovery. Esteemed artists such as Eric Clapton, David Crosby, Steven Tyler, Alice Cooper, Ozzy Osbourne, Pete Townsend, Chris Cornell, Jerry Cantrell, and Mike McCready, among others, have been recipients of this notable award. Stevie's death was a shock to the music world. His talent and influence were undeniable, and his loss was deeply felt. Stevie Ray Vaughan's legacy continues to live on, and he is still remembered and celebrated by fans and fellow musicians alike. His music continues to inspire new generations of musicians, and his influence on the blues and rock genres is undeniable. The tragic helicopter crash that took Stevie's life serves as a reminder of the importance of prioritizing safety, particularly when traveling in poor visibility conditions. It is essential to always put safety first and to never compromise on safety, even when time is of the essence. The real cause of this accident is that the pilot flew into IFR conditions without being certified or trained adequately. This is what also killed Kobe Bryant's group and Buddy Holly's entourage. Helicopters are more dangerous than planes because they have so many single failure points. One nut comes loose and you're going down, but taking off in fog at night in a hilly area without instrument training is virtual suicide. The pilot killed SRV through his incompetence. Before flying in bad weather with any pilot, make sure he is IFR qualified before taking off, and if in any doubt, don't go with him. In summary, Stevie Ray Vaughan was a talented musician whose life was tragically cut short in a helicopter crash. His legacy continues to inspire musicians today, and his memory lives on in the hearts of those who loved him. The accident that took his life highlights the significance of prioritizing safety at all times.
Like this video and comment below what is your thoughts about this crisis. Mysterious Minds.